I would just hope that Priti Patel and the Home Office and the Visa Service simplify their system, speed it up, put more staff in there, and let many more tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians who want to come to this country to be sponsored in sanctuary and safety, allow them to do so. It's quite embarrassing how bad our system is, to be honest.
Lord Dannatt is former Chief of the General Staff. He joins me now. Lord Dannatt, thank you so much for joining me on Times Radio. I suppose, first of all, why would Putin change his plans in Mariupol? So not bombardment, but basically just sealing off this last sort of surviving outpost.
Well, Mariella, good afternoon. I think this is another, difficult to choose which negative word to use, but we'll say horrid twist in the tale as far as Mariupol is concerned and the Azov Steel works. I mean, that is where the remaining members, principally of the Awaz regiment, have now holed up. And of course, if we think right back to the start of this campaign, one of the things that Vladimir Putin said, that he wanted to demilitarize Ukraine, but he wanted to denazify it. Now that caused us, many of us, to think what on earth he meant about that. But the Azov regiment, which is holding out in the steelworks, are pretty right wing. They are neo-Nazi. They have swastika type symbols as part of their insignia. And I'm afraid Vladimir Putin is being as degrading and as horrid and as appalling as he possibly can be in not wanting to allow these soldiers any form of escape. He wants to effectively strangle and suffocate them where they are. It's an appalling catastrophe. They don't want to surrender. He doesn't want to let them out. This is one of the darkest chapters of modern European history playing out, and we can't condemn it enough.
And Richard, there's nothing either that we can do, it seems.
Mariella, there's nothing we can do. For those who are minded, I suppose one can pray for a swift outcome to this and a good outcome, but I can't see a good outcome. At some point in the not too distant future, those soldiers will either have to surrender or die in place. If they do surrender, because of the nature of who they are and Vladimir Putin's avowed intention to denazify, I think those who do come into his hands will have a pretty torrid time. It's a very sad chapter in a very sad, wider episode in this whole Ukrainian war.
We've spoken a lot about the strategic importance of Mariupol. This is the final chapter, really, in terms of Mariupol's defense. So what will its falling represent in your mind?
Well, I think it's inevitable that Mariupol will completely come under Russian control in the not too distant future, which means that the particular strategic objective that Vladimir Putin was trying to achieve in the south will have been achieved, which is to create a land corridor from Crimea, which he seized in 2014, through Mariupol into the Donbas, and therefore joining it up with Russia proper. That gets Russia control of most of Ukrainian's coastline. Odessa is different, but it will mean that he has achieved that land corridor between Crimea and Russia proper, which was one of their strategic objectives. Of course, we can widen the conversation now about the attack being made into the Donbas proper, into Luhansk and Donetsk provinces. But just coming back to the Crimea and that land corridor, he will be achieving that very shortly. And all it is holding out is those remaining soldiers, largely underground in that steelworks in Mariupol.
President Zelensky said that he won't give up an inch of Ukrainian territory. But can there be an outright winner here, or is compromise going to be essential if unpalatable?
There'll be no winners and there'll be no losers in this conflict. It's too complex for that. I think at some point, I'm sure that at some point in the future, whether it's the short-term future or the medium-term future, the parties will have to come around a negotiating table and agree a ceasefire, and then agree how they proceed in the future. With the Russians having created this land corridor from Crimea through Donbas into Russia, probably taking control of most of the Donbas region itself. There is no one, NATO is certainly not going to do it. There is no one who can throw them out of Ukraine. The Ukrainian armed forces, which are fighting incredibly hard and incredibly well and supported by Western weaponry, will probably be able to hold the line to the east of Ukraine, but they will not be strong enough, I very much fear, to throw the Russians right out. So the status quo of a little while's time of the Russians controlling Donbas and controlling a land corridor to Crimea will be the new status quo. The issue then will be around the negotiating table, how Ukraine accepts that, how the West accepts that, and what means are put in place to make sure that this conflict, which will effectively become frozen, provides the basis for Ukraine to move forward, to rebuild those parts of the country that have been destroyed, and create a reasonable quality of life for its people again.
Do you think that that land corridor and taking that seaboard of Ukraine was always Putin's intention, and that the rest was a way in which, he could pave the way? I mean, is he that strategic, or is it at least enough for him to take back to Russia so that he doesn't look like he's failed in his Ukrainian mission?
Well, it'll be a minimum victory that he can claim on Armed Forces Day, Victory Day, on the 9th of May, that he's achieved a land corridor and reunited Crimea, as he would see it, properly with Russia. But of course, he's failed in his principal strategic aim, which was that lightning strike south from Belarus into Kyiv to effectively create regime change in Kyiv, and in his mind, then bring Ukraine back into the greater Russian sphere of influence. In that, he has failed. He can probably claim on the 9th of May limited success with that land corridor. And let's see what happens over the next few days and weeks with the fighting in Donetsk and Luhansk provinces. The Ukrainians are fighting really determinedly, supported by the West. We've just got to watch and see what happens in that extremely bloody and most unfortunate area of conflict.
And just finally, Richard, I understand that you're doing your bit for the war effort, maybe more than your bit, in that you've got 2 Ukrainian refugees at home with you. What's that experience been like?
Well, my spoken Ukrainian is not very good, and Larissa and Bobor's spoken English is not brilliant. So we are enjoying communication via a variety of other means. But like many people in this country, we put our hand up and said we would sponsor some people to come here, and they have come here, having navigated the very complicated Home Office and UK Visa and Immigration Service process. It's far too complicated, should be simplified. So we're happy to provide safety and sanctuary for these 2 who came from Chernihiv, spent a month in their basement being shelled. And I think it's the least that any of us can do. I would just hope that Priti Patel and the Home Office and the Visa Service simplify their system, speed it up, put more staff in there, and let many more tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians who want to come to this country to be sponsored in sanctuary and safety, allow them to do so. It's quite embarrassing how bad our system is, to be honest.
I can't believe a great strategist like yourself, a military strategist like yourself, came a cropper with the visa system. That really means it must be quite bad. Lord Dannatt, former Chief of the General Staff, thank you so much for joining us.